Great sunrise, family. Great sunrise. I hope all is well with you as it is with me. We're going to continue on our reading. One thing is, when I was doing the lookup on this reading that I'm doing on the Intuitionist, I found that, hold on, let me see. It's probably not up on this. Lila Mae is not considered, she's considered a, I think they can consider her a protagonist. Hold on here. We'll get it figured out. But oh no, I see why. Here we go. Let me figure this out. Because when we left off, she had just got to the place where the incident happened, and she was asking questions to Jimmy. And Jimmy was telling her about the poor kid and where I guess they were having the meeting, the Intuitionist. And they were doing a news conference on the incident. So that's around where we left off there. So without further delay, I'm just going to go. When I find out what they consider her character, I will let you know. But let's finish up. Okay, we left off, like I said, when Lila Mae was talking to Jimmy, and she left Jimmy and went to where the rest of her department is located. It says Lila Mae has one friend. Lila Mae has one friend. Hey, S. Wiseman. In the department, and his name is Chuck. Chuck's red hair is chopped and coaxed into a prim safety, which helps him fit in with the younger inspectors in the department. According to Chuck, the haircut is mandatory at the Midwestern Institute for Vertical Transport. His alma mater. Oh, yeah, you have to listen to the part one to get the story. Yeah. His autumn, what they say, his alma mater as of last spring. Item one or close to it in the handbook for students. Even the female students have to wear safeties, making for so many confused, wrenching swivels that Midwestern's physician Christian the resulting campus-wide epidemic of bruised spinal muscles. Safety neck. Chuck's theory is that the safety's reemergence is part of an oozing conservatism observable in every facet of the elevator industry. From this season's minimalist cab designs to the return of the steady T-rail after the ill-fated flirtations with round European guardrails, says he. Been too many changes in the guild over the last few years. Just look at the messy rise of Intuitionism, or the growing numbers of women and colored people in the guild. Shoot, just look at Lila Mae, flux itself, 3 times cursed. Inevitably, the cycle's got to come back around to what the old dogs want. Innovation and regression. Chuck likes to tell Lila Mae over lunch. Lunch usually being a brown bag negotiation over squeezed knees in the dirty atrium of the Mercer building, a few blocks from the office. Okay, you're fine. If you have to depart, that's fine. You can do catch up on the other. Back and forth, or up and down, Lila Mae adds to herself. Chuck maintains that after a quick tour of duty running these streets, he intends to park himself at a department desk job for a while and then pack it up to teach escalators at the Institute. Chuck's a shrewd one. Sorry about that. Given elevator inspections, undeniable macho cachet, and preferential treatment within the guild. It takes a unique personality to specialize in escalators, the lowest conveyance on the totem pole. Escalator safety has never received its due respect, probably because inspecting the revolving creatures is so monotonous that few have the fortitude, the stomach for vertigo, necessary to stare at the cascading teeth all day. But Chuck can live with the obscurity and disrespect and occasional migraines. Specialization means job security, and there's a nationwide lack of escalator professors in the institutes. So Chuck figures he's a shoe-in for a teaching job. And once he's in there, drawing a bead on tenure, he can branch out from escalators and teach whatever he wants. He probably even has his dream syllabus tucked in his pocket. At this very moment, scratched on a cheap napkin, a general survey course on the history of hydraulic elevators. For example, Chuck's cookie for hydraulics from Exodus 1867, direct action monstrosity to the latest rumors on the hybrids Arbo labs. Excuse me, my stomach. And planned for next year's fall line. Or hypothetical elevators, a hypothetical elevator studies is bound to come back into vogue again. Now that the furor has died down, Chuck's assured Lila Mae that even though he is a staunch empiricist, he'll throw in the intuitionist counter arguments where necessary. His students should be acquainted with the entire body of an elevator knowledge, not just the canon. Chuck feels his future in the guild is assured. For now, in one ear and out the other, with all the tread jockey jokes, no jokes or other forms of gentle and not so gentle ribbing right now. However, Chuck has been more or less accepted by the rest of the department after a brief period of imperceptible hazing. Imperceptible to new guys like Chuck and Pernell outsiders like Lila Mae, on account that the most of it consists of secret code words and bird-like hand gestures only members recognize. Let alone notice. And besides, tonight everyone's crowded around the radio listening to the press conference, the big news. Lila Mae, having crept out of the garage and walked over to O'Connor so attentively that anyone watching her would have thought her to have just that morning discovered her legs. Is not surprised to find her colleagues listening to the radio describe an event unfolding a scant hundreds yards away. They could have easily joined the newsmen outside the front of the headquarters. But that would have been too direct. The trip is everything to the elevator inspectors. The bumps and shudders, not the banalities of departure and destination. And if the radio waves must first amble from the reporters' microphones to the receiver atop the WCAM building and dolly there a bit before returning, nearly to the humble spot of their nativity. So much the better. The intrinsic circuitousness of inspecting appeases certain dustier quarters of her and her colleagues' mentalities. The very neighborhoods, it turns out, where the key and foundational character deficiencies reside. Nobody quite up to investigating those localities or prepared to acknowledge or remark upon them anyway. To do so would lead to instructive, yes, but no doubt devastating revelations about their jobs, about themselves. They're that important, really. The first one to suggest they go over to O'Connor to hear Shankray and the mayor, the one who made it easy for them to indulge the widening array of avoidance and circumambulations, is probably drinking free all night. The day shift and the night shift are firmly installed in slouching semicircles around O'Connor's radio, which is enshrined behind the bar underneath an emerald neon shamrock. She spots Chuck's red hair halfway into the pack. The wolves are intent on the sounds on the radio. The mayor says, "We'll get to the bottom of this affair. Pillory the guilty parties. Launch a full-scale investigation into the terrible accident at Fanny Briggs building, dedicated to one of our country's most distinguished daughters. Do you think that a party or parties resistant to colored progress may be responsible?" A reporter asked the mayor. Too much furious murmuring and O'Connor's "Everyone thinks as they must" of last summer's riots, of how strange it was to live in a metropolis such as this. Magnificent elevated trains, 5 daily newspapers, 2 baseball stadiums, and yet be too afraid to leave the house. How quickly things can fall into a medieval disorder. Right, now we're hesitant to speculate on who may or may not be responsible, the mayor says. We don't want to inflame any emotions or incite the baser impulses. I was present at the scene, and all I know is that there was a great clanging, a loud clanging, and much confusion. And I knew that something terrible had transpired at the Fanny Briggs Memorial Building. Right now, we're concentrating on facts at hand, such as the inspection records. But Mr. Shankray, the chair of the Department of the Elevator Inspectors, will be handling those questions. Mr. Shankray. Needless to say, Lila Mae doesn't frequent O'Connor very often, usually just on the department's bowling nights, when it's just her and Chuck and the resident alcoholics. This latter party posing no threat except to clean floors, because her father taught her that white folks can turn on you at any moment. She fears for her life in O'Connor's because she believes that the unexpected scrape of a chair across the floor or a voice sudden intensity contains the potentiality of a fight. On the few occasions Lila Mae has been in O'Connor during the broadcast of a baseball game or a boxing match. Every cheer sent her looking for makeshift weapons. It doesn't help matters that the bartender rings a large brass bell when a patron doesn't tip. She jumps every time, jumps at that sound, and at the starter's pistol they fire to quell disagreements. Heated exchanges over the various merits and drawbacks of heat dispersal in the United Elevators braking systems. Say, they can turn rabid at any second. This is the true result of gathering integration, the replacement of sure violence and deferred sure violence. Her position is precarious in the office. She understands that, and in O'Connor as well. She's a lost tourist among heavy vowels, the crude maps of ancestral homelands and the family crests of near exterminated clans. Her position is precarious. Everywhere she goes in this city, for that matter, but she's trained dread to keep invisible in its ubiquity. Like fire hydrants and gum trod into black sidewalk spackle. Makeshift weapons include shoes, keys, and broken bottles. Pool cues if they're handy. I bet you $10 Shankray makes a campaign speech sucker bat. Peril, tonight especially. Imagine it like this. Everything known is now different. She really put her foot in it now. Her and the rest of that bunch by Roland. Shankray's a cinch now. Never mind that Lila Mae hasn't been in a fight since the third grade. When a young blonde girl with horse teeth asked her, "Why do niggers have curly hair?" That's what happens when you let freaks and misfits into the guild. Shut up. I want to hear the man. The first thing a colored person does when she enters a white bar is look for other colored people. There is only one other colored person besides Lila Mae. Whoever ventures past the sneering leprechaun who covers on O'Connor door and that Pompey who's here tonight, elbows on the bar, sipping whiskey daintily as if it were the Caliph's tea. The cuffs of his shirt bowled out of sad and comically short jacket sleeves. The bartender sweeps away empty glasses with a clock hands impatience, so there's no estimating the margin of safety. For Lila Mae, not Pompey, these men would never hurt Pompey. Little Pompey, who surely would have commanded some limp mare at the racetrack had he not found his illustrious vacation, or it found him, for there's something akin to fatal resignation in the inspector's attitude towards their life's work. Here's a story about Pompey. That's true or not true. It doesn't matter. One time, George Holt, Shankray pre- predecessors, predecessors called Pompey into his office near quitting time. The guild chair's office is on the executive floor above the pit, and since reprimands and termination notices arrive in official department inter-office mail envelopes, invitations upstairs are universally regarded as omens of good fortune. Promotions, plum assignments, keys to the better sedans. Again, Pompey, the first colored elevator inspector in the city, is summoned up to see. Holt, for the first time, after putting in 4 years on the streets, the difficulty of all colored firsts is well documented or, at the very least, easily imaginable, and need not be elaborated, except to say that Pompey had exceedingly hard time of things. When Holt called him upstairs, Pompey believed his appalling, obsquicious nature, cultivated to exceptional degree during his time in the department, had finally served him well. Holt had never spoken to him before, and Pompey found him surprisingly um, affable. Holt offered him a cigar, the scent of which Pompey was well acquainted with, as it lingered in random pockets of the department's hallways and offices, marking where Holt had walked and surveyed an acrid reminder of authority. Bodiless, unseen everywhere, Pompey brushed his tongue across the inside of his cheeks to forage the residue of the faintly cinnamon smoke, the very wisp of Holt's esteem. He accepted confidence. He expected confidence. Holt told him he was going to kick him in the ass. Pompey laughed. His executive humor was going to take a little getting used to, and went along with the joke, even after Holt told him to bend over, which he did. Pompey continued to court Tool until Holt kicked him in the left ass cheek with the arrowhead of one of his burgundy wingtips. Pompey's angle of vision precluded determination of exactly which shoe. Then Holt told him to leave his office. The next day, a small memo appeared on Pompey's desk informing him of his promotion to inspector second grade. True, Holt didn't at first ask him to shine the shoe, and he got to keep the cigar. Lila Mae hadn't heard the story until Chuck told her about it. Far from explaining Pompey's animus towards her, the story merely obscured matters. Did Pompey resent Lily Mae for presenting them with a more exotic token? More exotic token. Sorry. Thus diluting their hatred towards him. The hatred that had calcified over time into something he came to cherish and savor as a friendship, or were his haughty stares and keen disparagements, his attempts at warning against becoming him, and thus an aspect of racial love. Pompey says now she's finally getting what's been coming to her for a long time now. And halitosis, halitosis, Harry smacks him on the back in agreement. Nobody spotted her yet, except for the bartender, who's too much of a pro to say anything. She's not hiding exactly, but most of her body is sec- sec- uh, secreted, secret, secreted, uh, secreted behind a pillar conveniently situated between the door and the crowd at the radio. The same luring leprechaun on that front door of O'Connor's shimmies on the pillar or in triplicate. Or maybe she is hiding. She's not sure. She doesn't know how to get Chuck's attention. He's been quiet through all of it. One of her colleagues lets fly a rolling rebel yet at something Sean Cray just said. Is it true that the inspector was an intuitionist? A reporter asked. Yes, the inspector of Fanny Briggs' building, a Miss Lily Mae Watson, is an intuitionist. I'm real reluctant to turn this terrible affair into a political matter, but I'm sure most of you are well aware that opponent in the election for guild chair is also an intuitionist. Lily Mae realizes that the time she spent thinking about how to navigate O'Connor would have been better spent listening to the radio or simply going up to Chuck and grabbing him out of the mob. That would have surprised them. But now she's no more wiser than when she entered. Do you think that intuitionist methods, which in the past you have described as heretical and downright voodoo, may have played a part in today's crash? Right now, Internal Affairs is looking into that very possibility. We have a copy of the building's inspection report, and believe me, we are scrutinizing and cogitating as I speak. Gentlemen, it's just these very kinds of occurrences I have been trying to eradicate in my 4 years as a guild chair. And I don't think I'm being immodest when I tell you I think I've made a pretty good go of it. Our department sedans are shiny as never before, and Morale has never been so high. It's almost scary. Sometimes people ask me, how do I how I made this department the crown jewel, the very pearl of the city services. I tell them that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Why hold truck with uppity and newfangled when imperialism has always been the steering light of reason. Just like it was in our fathers' days and our fathers' fathers. Today, incident is just the kind of unfortunate mishap that can happen when you no toe to the latest fashions from overseas. We're going to get to the bottom of this, gentlemen. I can give you my blood oath on that little crawdaddy. It occurs to her that now she doesn't have an alibi either. Just like the anonymous wrath on the side of the highway, no one knows who they are. Not that Lily Mae couldn't use some excitement in her life, as the two men searching her apartment are discovering through items in the facts Jim's on his knees in Lily Mae's closet, forcing his plump fingers into her shoes and testing the heels for secret hiding places. She has one pair of worn sneakers left over from when she first moved to the city and spent long hours on trudging marches between the buildings. Each time she came to the city's edges and saw the churning brown rivers beyond, Lily Mae would have would hit a right angle and turn back into the building. Deeper in, she never experienced an anonymity, an anonymity like that. It's as if the place stimulates enzymes that form a carapace. The walks petered out about a year ago. Now she sits. The rest of her footwear consists of department rag wingtips, shined to obsessive gleam. In the wake of Chancre's image crusade, she has 5 pairs of them, arranged to the days of the work week. Friday's pair is missing. Yeah, you can listen while you work. Yeah. Yeah. So far we have that we have some, political involvement, with the whole between the intuitionists, see, the old way and the new way of doing things. So there's some conflicts we see there already. Um, but it seems like Lily Mae is trying to make sense of everything. That's why I don't know how she's not the main character, but they say she's a protagonist. But I forgot the exact title they labeled her. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay. Jim's already searched every pocket of her clothes, traced every stitch. Find it is his motto. Jim's the more obvious of this duo, sworn to his day's specific orders. Today, or get evidence. John's the philosophical inclined one, prone to staring moodily out of the attic window of the house he lives in with his parents, continuing to stare out even after Louisa, his next door neighbor, has finished undressing and turned out the lights. John needs patterns and labors after them, even when circumstances betray him, because there's must be patterns. Experience is recursive, and if the pattern has not announced itself yet, it will eloquent and emphatic in a mild mannered sort of way. He's still searching for a concordance between the loss of his virginity purchased and an ankle sprain accidental. Exactly 3 years later, give or take an hour, John is sure it will come, awaiting another item in the series or a new perspective on the extant ones. No matter. For now, he satisfies himself with an appraisal of Lily Mae's clothes, which gently brush over Jim's bent back. Very few casual clothes, and what there are of them favor autumnal spectra, damp brown's rust, brittle grays. Her four dark blue suits, one again is missing, are identical, describing John thinks, a pathological affinity for regularity. The constant and true, an attempt to fit in that unavoidably calls attention to itself. It appears John's societal schemata that Lily Mae is of a colored persuasion. Jim and John are white, and thanks to the vagaries of statistical distribution, average citizens of this country, contrary to the universal constant of partners, Jim and John are not tall and short, fat and skinny, jolting into a comic dissimilarity. They look alike and look like a great number of other people. They reach for grocer's last box of cereal to prevent the next customer from enjoying it, and don't even like cereal. Banks are full of them, and movie theaters and public transport. The invisible everyman men, the true citizens, Lily Mae counts few people in this world as friends. Jim and John are the rest. Dusty brown clumps of hair, proud jaws, complexions, quick to blood eaters of steak, fat gobblers, bletchers. The department of elevator inspector is overflowing with men like this, but don't be fooled by their officious demeanors and methodical bent. These guys aren't department. Hot dogs and mustard is Jim's favorite meal. Mustard being a discrete element and not mere condiment. John likes hamburgers with ketchup. Fine distinctions are not lost on John, who is the sort that prides himself on knowing what is what. With regards to their present day, what's what is that they haven't found that they are looking for, what they are looking for. They haven't found what they are looking for. Sorry about that. 2 rooms, a main room, and just enough space to prevent Lila Mae from being trampled by herself, and a smaller cube that barely accommodates a bed and a dresser. A plant, a piggy bank, a plastic pear. Her few possessions are aloof in their purchase. On sills and tables, confident that their ranks will not grow and that the competition of Lila Mae's attention or lack thereof will remain as it has been for some time. What strikes John the most is the studied appearance of habitation. She is trying to convince other people that she lives here, but the impression instead is that of slow moving out, piece by piece. Nothing rather rattles in the piggy bank. This place must get a lot of light, John says, outside of Lila Mae's window. The red bulb on top of a radio tower blinks slow as a lizard. A lot of light, Jim replies. How much do you think she pays for this place? I wouldn't live in this neighborhood if you paid me, Jim says, without a regret. The neighborhood is titled receding and dilating according to the exegeses of the city. Years before, a rich man decided to erect a monument to himself, an elevated train, and traversed the city, even in neighborhoods like this one, which were not even neighbors yet. Okay. So we'll stop there. Oh. So we'll stop there. And we'll start, and we're close to chapter 2, part 2 of this book. We're not that far off. I think that when I read next time, I might start early and go longer. I think the next reading is going to be Saturday, where I have more, I have more time, and probably during the evening. So that's how we'll do that. And so we can get a big chunk of this first chapter out. So we can get the first chapter out the way and start chapter 2 next week. And we can get through this story because I'm very anxious about getting through to some other stories, some other books. Also, like The Coming Race. I really want to get into that book. And there's another one. I'm going to look for those books. I got them up in my closet library area. So where I got them all together. I keep all my books together because I hate not being able to know where anything is. So My books are definitely together in one spot. So we're gonna go over more books. We're not. This is just the first book that I had to go through with you guys, but we're gonna go over other books too as well, dealing with our spirituality, and everything's dealing with our spirituality, our powers, our magic, and the trying to be in a diverse world, and dealing with the racism and all of these things we have to deal with. But our minds are not the same. We have the ability um, to do more and be more because we are more. But when we're going to talk about tomorrow's discussion is on, are you cultivated? And that's a question I want you to ask yourself, kind of self-reflect, and then come back here and we'll discuss it. Because have you been manipulated from your nature? Have you been manipulated from who you're supposed to be? These things are good to reflect on, because this is part of your awakening and opening up your eye, third eye, and your mind's eye. That's your mind's eye, of course. And definitely we have to ask these questions to ourselves in these days and times, because we've been through an ordeal of recently that's about ready to, all these, it takes us to recognize the game. Like I said earlier before, we can't hate the player, but we should hate the game where beat it. We beat it, or we hinder it. And we have those abilities to do that. And, as you're going to see in this book, she has the ability. She goes and she's self-aware. She knows something's not right, and she digs into it, and to find out more what more is going on here in this situation. So we're going to find that out, and as well in the world, our lives, we need to find that out. So with that said, family, I hope I made sense. True love, real peace, and the higher self within. Till the next time, peace.